So I'm trying something a little bit different with this video today. I actually get to interview a real live human being in person. Unfortunately, that leaves me with pretty limited options. So with that being said, welcome my husband, Greg.
Well, hello. Hi.
Thanks for being here tonight, Greg.
Yes, thank you. Well, I live here.
Yeah, you had nowhere else to be. No. So a lot of people know Greg from social media. You probably don't recognize him looking much like this, as you have famously been a hippopotamus in I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas video, as well as Buddy the Elf. But a lot of people don't actually know much about you, other than in terms of kind of, your videos and the things you post about you on social media.
Yes, the random posts.
Yes. I obviously know a lot about Greg because I live with him, I'm married to him. So it'd be kind of weird for me just to come up with questions for my own husband. So with that in mind, we actually had Meg, my right-hand lady, come up with a question. So Greg hasn't seen them. I haven't seen them. So let's get started. Oh, as evident by the page was upside down. So first and foremost, questions for Meg. Greg, what is your profession?
So I'm a banker. I work for TD Bank. I've been in financial services for about 12 years. Started in 2006. And I've been fortunate enough to have seen what happened in 08, 09, and then more recently the coronavirus, which on a professional level has been kind of interesting.
So can you tell us what exactly you do at the bank, other than banker? Or no?
Other than banker.
Is it top secret?
No, it's not top secret. So I work in credit policy. So it's probably no surprise to anyone that when the bank is offering credit facilities to its customers, there's a bit of a buy box in terms of what you need to be able to show for credit history, for your capacity to repay debt, and for your credit worthiness, fundamentally. So all that's written down on a fancy piece of paper called the policy. It's very old school, and ultimately those end up being decisions that get a lot of debate in the bank. So there's a lot of time that's spent debating those things. So,
and that's what you do.
That's what I do. I help debate those items. So famously, if my wife, who's a realtor, very passionate about her clients, is having trouble getting someone approved, it comes on me. It's like, why are you making it more difficult for my clients? I'm like, well, I'm trying to do what's best for the bank and the financial system as a whole.
Yeah, although we should clarify, you actually have absolutely nothing to do with actually approving people.
No.
You're just more on the kind of policy side of things. So
yes, that is true.
It's a joke, but we can't actually blame Greg for everyone who's not able to get a mortgage.
No.
But sometimes we do. Next question. So some of you may recognize Greg for his tremendous work as Buddy the Elf. As we talked about, Greg, did Jacqueline have to bribe you to be Buddy, or was it a passion project for you?
I would say that I'm actually surprised at how willing I am to throw on a costume and prance around like an idiot for other people's amusement. I don't have a history in drama or the theater or really doing anything like this. It's just, I get presented with ideas and I don't say no, and then I just go with it. So by the time you're dressed up as Buddy the Elf, you might as well give it 110%.
Yep, and you definitely did.
Thank you.
What does a typical night look like in the Campington household?
Typical nights, unfortunately, are probably dominated by the kids, because by the time both of us get home from work, there's very little time to get through dinner and bedtime and set up and prep for the day. So unfortunately, a typical night in the Campington household is not particularly interesting.
There you go. What is your professional take on COVID-19 and the economic landscape we find ourselves in?
Interesting. Well, I mean, the first caveat I have to make is that I'm not speaking on behalf of the institution that I work for. I can give my personal opinion, which I'm happy to do so.
Disclaimer at the bottom.
Yeah, we'll put a little legal disclaimer at the bottom, or link here for the legal. I think ultimately it's a negative event. It's not a positive thing that's happening. People's lives are impacted and generally negative. There's a large health consideration as well, and as an employer of a large number of people, it's about 90,000 people who work for TD Bank. Obviously, the health and safety of employees is the most important thing. So there's still people who are working in branches, there's still people who are working in call centers, and that's a top priority. The institution is very focused on that. I would say banks are here to help their customers fundamentally. There's an old adjective that banking is about helping people with their problems. And there's an awful lot of people who have some problems right now. I am thankful enough to be working in Canada with a very stable banking system. And when the chips are down, the perspective is, what can we do to help people? And so that's a positive place to be. It's a professionally, that really sort of sums up the way we're thinking about things, the way I'm thinking about things. It's ultimately what is it that we can do to help people? I do feel very much for those that are on the front lines dealing with this every day, in the same way that people working in grocery stores are dealing with a lot of challenging scenarios. And so for those of us who aren't faced with that, I try to just do whatever we can to help those that do. And so that's really my perspective.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
A little bit of a different question. As a family, are you more beach or cottage getaway?
Cottage.
That's for us, yeah. Definitely cottage.
Yeah.
Was it, I'm laughing because now I'm reading the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Was it love at first sight when you met Jacqueline, or did it take a bit of time for the relationship to bloom? And now I'm blushing. Thanks, Meg.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Meg. It's a good question. It's absolutely love at first sight. Absolutely. No hesitation on that one at all.
No. How could you not love this? I'm just
No.
kidding. Biggest pet peeve? Don't say me.
No. No, I don't know. I'm gonna give a half answer on that one. I don't think I have a specific pet peeve. There's lots of things in the day that irritate me. It depends on my mood.
Yeah, can you name just one?
Can I name just one? General pet peeves, just unnecessary drama.
Yeah.
Yeah, just unnecessary crap. It just, especially in a situation like what we're facing with today, is like people are, there's lives at stake in terms of what we do. And so to be living in that kind of environment and still fussing around about really unimportant things, genuinely unimportant things that would be unimportant even when you had nothing else to do, I get really irritated by that. I have very little patience for that.
Yep. We've seen a brief glimpse into your culinary skills. What is one of your favorite meals to cook?
Favorite meals to cook. I actually really like making Yorkshire pudding.
Really?
I will actually say I like making Yorkshire pudding. It's more challenging than it looks, considering it's all of 2 ingredients, flour and eggs. Well, it's 3 ingredients, flour, eggs, and milk. But it's the timing, it's the very hot oven you've got to try to get right. You got to sort of feel it. And inevitably, I'm making Yorkshire at the last minute before the dinner goes out on the table. So there's a bit of pressure there too. So there's nothing like a bit of a pressure experience to make it interesting. So it makes it more enjoyable when it turns out.
And your wife's favorite food?
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a big consideration.
I meant the pressure.
Oh, the pressure.
Right. Yes.
Yes.
So that's with it as well. Yorkshire, for those that don't know, is my favorite food. So it's something that Greg learned to make not too long after we started dating, I don't think.
Yeah, you'd commented about it and I was like, okay, I'll go look it up. And I was like, all right, it's just 3 ingredients. And then I made it a couple of times and realized like, oh, it takes some skill. Yeah. I'm not super skilled in the kitchen, but I'm competent enough that I enjoy it.
Yes. And coming from an English background, I can tell you that you make the best Yorkshire pudding.
Oh, thank you.
As a Scot.
You have to say that because you're stuck in quarantine with me.
This is true. What personality trait has gotten you in the most trouble?
The most trouble. Probably overconfidence, thinking that I know the facts when I may have actually been mistaken in that. I would apply that both professionally and personally as well. That a little bit of fact checking and research before I shoot my mouth off in one way, shape, or form would have benefited me in a number of occasions.
Very insightful. Last question. Do you
question.
have a random skill or talent?
A random skill or talent? Well, I would say random. I do like a good off-the-wall skill. I typically don't shy away from a challenge, as evidenced by the fact that I throw myself in a costume at the moment's notice. I like working with my hands, even though I'm sort of a banker, and you'd expect a banker to be fairly, non-labory intensive. I do like working on cars. I'm looking forward to, when the weather and circumstances present themselves, fixing up an old tractor. That'll be kind of fun, working on some farm equipment in that way. I'd like to get better sort of DIY skills around the house, similarly. So I don't know if I have a random skill or talent. I think it's just, I just enjoy doing a lot of different things. And so sometimes someone might look at me and say, wow, that's really random that you know how to do that. I was like, well, I enjoy doing stuff. So it's always helpful.
Keep them busy.
Keep them busy.
Well, that's it. Wasn't too painful?
No, it wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
And I would say that I'll see you later, but I'll still be here quarantined with you for the next few weeks, few months. I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
All right.
So, yeah.
Take care.
Bye.